Greetings, spacers, and welcome to the Space Revolution. My name is Rick Tumlinson. You're listening to iRock Space Radio. We're part of the iHeart Radio Network. Today, wherever you are on this little ball in space, this little blue marble, we have a great guest. And those of you who know me a little bit through the Earthlight or whatever is, one of the big things for me is expanding human communities beyond the Earth. And I want to see that starting to happen. I do believe that as Starship and Rocket Lab and the others begin to build reusable starships or spaceships, excuse me, that the opportunity is going to arise for people or groups of people to come together and basically, and staying away from the cultural, historic issues, but basically become sort of the new pilgrims, the groups that will grab or come together, and grab the opportunity to be able to take ships to new worlds and therein establish those first human communities. They're going to come in all shapes, sizes, and forms. They're going to have all kinds of reasons for going. Some of them will be going to go create new things. Some will be leaving to escape old things. Some will be a combination of that. Some will go for money. That's the one you hear the most talk about. We'll talk about that in a minute. But some are going to go because they have the passion, they have the spark, they have the fire. They believe it is their destiny, their job, and their duty. And I think today's guest basically exemplifies that kind of thinking. So Pablo Moncada is the founder of the group Moondao. We're also going to talk about what a DAO is. So we'll have two levels here. We're going to talk about the move into space, but also the concept of a DAO. Those of you who are crypto types, you just heard music to your ears, didn't you? Ooh, a DAO, but the rest of us are like, what the heck is that? And it's not the religion Taoism, although I'm sure it is in some techno geeky way. So without any further ado, I want to introduce Pablo. Now, Pablo went to the University of Michigan, picked up a degree in mechanical engineering, business. He worked at Google Waymo, the automated car project. He was a part of Google X, working on exoskeletons, and then did some work with YouTube in the VR space, or the space of VR. And then somewhere along the line, things shifted and he headed in this direction. I'm not going to tell that story because it's his story and he can tell it better. So welcome, Pablo.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's our pleasure, man. So, yeah, man. Tell us a little bit about what Moondao is in the broader sense, and then we can break it down if you want, or however you want to approach it to explain what a DAO is versus the group Moondao.
Yeah. So I guess I'll maybe start with like why Moondao exists, or why I think
Perfect. Yeah.
it's solving a problem here. So I guess like big picture. I think most of the space nerds like myself agree that we should be exploring the cosmos. That this is just something that is inherent to our nature as a civilization. We want to expand into the unknown, explore the frontier. This is extremely exciting. It's an inherent just attribute of being human. And I think that really doesn't need much explanation. But yeah, I think on a deeper level, right now you have a bunch of space companies that are, taking sort of the seeds of what was created through government programs, and privatizing them, and like trying to pick up that torch. And right now, a lot of those companies are constrained by military ITAR regulations, and they're solving for a very difficult problem, which is taking a dual use technology that has been in the hands of government, and then trying to uh, yeah make use of that, and trying to uh, like more or less they're constrained not by necessarily capital but by collaboration, and by that I mean collaboration between different nations. So you have uh, a, a a space race right now between China and the United States, and this is extremely contentious on a nation to nation level. And all of the private organizations that are using this space technology, they find it extremely difficult to collaborate with, say, like not non U.S. citizens. So, um, for example, SpaceX or Blue Origin, they can't hire people outside of the U.S. So there's this fundamental constraint on this inherent um, love of exploration that unites people from all over the world, that makes it very difficult for people to collaborate. And so, yeah, I think that there's sort of this problem that Moondao solves, where we're giving access to people from all over the world, not just from the United States, but from different countries that might not have a space program, to access the space technology and to get a, a seat at the table, basically, in driving this new era of exploration. And I think people from all over the world are incredibly excited about space, but they just don't know where to get started. They don't know how to, like, what problems are the most important ones that need solving. And so, Moondao is trying to, get people into the conversation from different parts of the world, from different backgrounds. They don't necessarily need to be rocket scientists, because space is going to need all kinds of people, not just engineers. So, yeah, it's, I mean, this isn't like something that I thought I would ever be necessarily involved in. It really happened in kind of like a step by step process. The idea kind of found me in a way, and I'm just trying to articulate it and trying to see where the journey is taking me, basically. But yeah, it's I'd say that's the reason why we are a DAO. Some people look at DAOs and crypto in sort of this strange way, and DAOs are incredibly new technology, and to some extent, it's a very young technology, and it's powerful, and more powerful than people, I think, give credit to, and it can be used in extremely negative ways and in good ways. And we're trying to navigate not just the new space technology, but also navigate this crypto technology, and it's not all good. There are issues with it. A lot of issues that weren't necessarily apparent when people started getting into DAOs, and now Moondao is kind of at the forefront of some of this DAO revolution, and we're trying to, yeah, align people of different cultures, different beliefs, and trying to use this tool of alignment through crypto governance to see what commonality, like how we can work together. And we've got this beautiful symbol of the moon, which is something that anyone from all over the world can look at and go, hey, this is inspiring. Any child can look up and go, hey, this is something that I can get behind. So I think that's something that we've got going for us for sure. Yeah.
So you slipped into a great summary of the kind of the why and bringing inclusion and bringing people together around the world. Um, I'm going to take you back a step for the last few minutes of this first section and have you give us the idiot's tutorial of a DAO in, let's say, 5 minutes or less. I have never heard of a DAO. The last time I heard anything that sounded like DAO was somebody from the Far East, or Asia or whatever, talking about a religion. You're talking about DAO, DAO. What does that mean? What is it? What are the basic principles? Just the DAO part. And then we can come back and talk about Moon and human settlement and all of that. So, can you give us a quick tutorial? Pretend I am a congressman.
Okay. Um, well, let's see. I think that it's important to start from um, an information point of view and talk about how um, we've operated traditionally and what these new tools allow us to do. So, um, in the traditional sense, when you're talking about a company, you're talking about capital. So its ability to access financial markets and its ability to, um, yeah, use money effectively to further its goals. And so when we're talking about money, um, right now, usually we're talking about fiat currency. And when we're talking about fiat currency, we're talking about nations. So since Bretton Woods, money and nations have been kind of combined. And when we talk about money, we talk about national currencies. Um, and so this is a database of everyone's accounts. They're in different banks from all over the world, and they give us an idea of how much like our ability to trade with one another. It's a proxy for resources and just being able to move them back and forth. And we have this this intermediary, a trusted intermediary, that acts as uh, you know they basically secure that database of money, and they say you have this much, you have that much. When banks trade, they make sure that the amounts are correct, that there isn't fraud, and yeah, so that's where we are today. But since 2009, with Bitcoin, we have this new form of decentralized ledger, an accounting system where consensus is not built through a centralized, trusted third party. It's distributed. So everyone has a copy of all of the accounts of how much money people have, and there's a consensus algorithm where and we can get into the weeds of how it works. With Bitcoin, it's proof of work. People use computation to determine that, hey, I'm a real person, and there's a game that's being played where the first one that can reverse. It's basically large number division, which is a very difficult problem. The specific problem that it solves is called the Byzantine generals problem. This is a big problem in information science or computer science that was solved through Bitcoin. Um, but what this means for any company is that there is now an alternative method of accessing financial markets that doesn't run through a bank or a nation necessarily. It's peer to peer, it's person to person, and it is yeah, and it comes with all of the great aspects of that, of being direct and uncensorable and permissionless, and all of the negative aspects of that too. They're it's not regulated. There are scammers, and it's a chaotic environment. But yeah. Oh.
So, are you? So, yeah. No, it's interesting when I talk to people that are in crypto, they're trying to speak civilian, and then they're getting into it, and then there's the philosophy behind it, which is a large driver, right? So basically, you're using the you're using this interaction that allows people to engage. Basically, and Moondao is a company, correct? It's
Um,
it's a not for profit, or is it a for profit?
so so I guess there's the tech side, which is our crypto stuff, which we use a multi-signature wallet. We have a governance token. We have all of that, and that's how we're governed and operated and owned. And then we have the sort of more traditional legal side of things, which we've elected to. There are few jurisdictions in the world that have recognized DAOs as being
Mhm.
a legal entity and have started to develop frameworks for how to regulate them and give them not just access to capital in sort of the crypto sense, but then also in the traditional banking sense. And one of those jurisdictions is the Marshall Islands, which we've identified as being the right place for Moondao to be incorporated. Um, and yeah, I mean, I would love for crypto to be recognized and a DAOs to be recognized in the United States proper. But I do think that there is some advantage to having a smaller jurisdiction that can serve as kind of an experimental test bed of how to work with these technologies, and then larger players like the United States can use that information from these smaller jurisdictions to make their steps carefully. Because the U.S. is one of the deepest financial markets, and a misstep from the United States could be pretty damaging, and they have a lot to protect. So I think that there's a reason why some of these smaller jurisdictions will play a very important role in sort of the maturing of DAO technology.
Okay, so we're going to spend some more time on this because
Mm-hmm.
as a congressman, I'm starting to get it. But the reason I chose congressmen is because they're like dumber than most 5 year olds. So we're going to come back after the break. We're going to work a little more on this because I want people to really understand what a DAO
Mm-hmm.
is. They're not listening to the show if they aren't space conversant, but crypto conversant, slightly different. There's some Venn diagram overlap, but probably we need to do a little more to explain what this is. All
Mm-hmm.
right, folks, you are listening. Folks, I called you folks. You're spacers. Folk. Well, you are folks. You're both. So, spacers, you are listening to iRock Space Radio. My name is Rick Tumlinson. This is the Space Revolution. We're part of iHeartRadio Network. We're talking to Pablo Moncada, and we are going to be right back. All right, spacers, welcome back. iRock Space Radio. My name is Rick Tumlinson. You are listening to the Space Revolution. We are part of iHeartRadio Network. Today, we have Pablo Moncada. Pablo, am I pronouncing that right?
Moncada with an A.
Moncada.
Yeah, the
I
Pablo and
apologize.
Moncado. I feel like it's just it rhymes, so it happens pretty often. Yeah.
That's right. I
Yeah.
get everybody's name wrong. Sorry, and it's so insulting, and I apologize for that.
No, no, it's yeah.
Moncada, Pablo
Hmm.
Moncada. And so you are the founder of Moondao. You're trying to explain to me, the dumber than a 5 year old congressperson, and I'm not. I would never run for Congress or anything like that. I'm just kind of creating a model of somebody who needs things spoken slowly. And anybody, by the way, who has watched congressional hearings lately on the digital economy knows exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to speak slowly so that we can understand. I'm sure most of the audience is right up there with you, but there are some folks, again, very space conversant, but I really want people to get what a DAO is because I think it's a very exciting concept that you have here. So basically, we have a distributed autonomous organization?
Decentralized autonomous. Yeah.
Sorry, decentralized
Hmm.
autonomous organization.
Hmm.
People are parts of it. You can be a part of it anywhere in the world. You go to, I guess, moondao.org,
Dot com. Hmm.
.com, sign up, and now you're part of this organization. And then the rest of it comes in terms of money or sweat or both? Can you help us understand that? How do you earn your place in the Moon Dao? How do you become a Moon Taoist?
Hmm. Yeah, great question. So, yeah, I guess we've taken it from the abstract. This is what the blockchain is. This is what a DAO is, and now from just a personal perspective, what does it look like to actually participate? So you'd go through our onboarding process, and our onboarding process basically number one identifies you as a real human being, which this is actually a very difficult problem, more difficult than you'd expect, especially with an online organization. So you go through our verification process, and then you can either purchase the governance token directly. So we operate through a governance token, and this is a token that controls our entire treasury. And as a member, you help guard and allocate funds from our treasury into other initiatives. And you have a say in how our organization operates and where we put money. Um, and or you could also contribute towards one of the various projects that we have ongoing. So the way that we've structured Moondao is in project format. So Moondao has a bunch of different projects that we're working on, and you can join one of these projects. And for contributing to the project, once the project ends, um, basically members inside of it rate everyone's performance, and then you can be gifted tokens from our organization. And these tokens
Can you
aren't.
can you give me a couple of
Mhm.
ideas of what the couple of random projects might be?
Totally. So, for example, right now we've just spun up a lunar communications project. So this is a network topology design project. So we're uh, analyzing and assessing a bunch of different network topologies for Earth Moon communications protocols. And that's like an example of a very technical project. But we also do. Uh, Recently, we did a zero gravity project. We purchased. We actually chartered an entire zero gravity plane, and then we ran a sweepstakes. We voted on members that are participating, and we're doing this with a couple of NASA astronauts. Another project is we're sending people's DNA to the moon with a company called LifeShip that we
Mhm.
partnered with, and we worked very closely with them, developing different. Uh, app, we're sending people's genetic code to the moon, and images, data from the Moondao community on this moon mission. And then we also work on internal projects. So, for example, we're building out a web app for Moondao to just make the friction and understanding of our community, make the onboarding smoother, make creating and joining projects easier, um, stuff like that. So we've got a
So
bunch of different projects running. Yeah.
so again, so basically, then you've kind of given three types of projects. One, sweepstakes, fundraising, getting more money into the Moondao organization. Um, and then the other is a infrastructure of Moondao itself, how it operates, all of that. And then the one that's the core, I guess, the long throw, the big picture, which is, because obviously, and you've kind of said it, but the goal is for Moondao to establish human communities on the moon, or a community.
Hmm.
Um, so the long one was the communications, right? So in a sense, what you're saying is that people who have all kinds of different skills can be a part of Moondao, because two of those three have almost nothing to do with whether you're an engineer, right? They're just, marketing, PR, that kind of thing, fundraising. So there are opportunities for a lot of different kind of people to participate in Moondao.
Totally. Yeah,
Okay.
we have people from all walks of life. different parts of the world that speak different languages. We translate back and forth all of our proposals. Yeah, and we try to yeah. The first thing that you do when you join Moondao is you introduce yourself. You say, "Hey, this I'm Pablo. This is my background. This is what I like to do." And then we have a team at Moondao that works on onboarding, and then they try to fit you into what you like to do, and try to find a project for you. And if there isn't a project that matches what you want to do exactly, you can create your own. So as
Oh,
long as
cool.
you're with us on the mission, and that's to create this settlement on the moon, we like it's going to take people from all kinds of backgrounds to get us there. It's not just rocket scientists.
So as you're doing these projects, you're moving forward through time. Basically, your labor, your creativity, there's some sort of point structure, some sort of calculation. And you said at the end of the projects, your teammates vote on your contribution, which is very interesting. The politics must be fun there. And then based on that contribution, you get some credits that go into your Moondao account, right? So,
hmm
what is that Moondao account for? Does it give you more votes? Do you get like a certain level leading up to the point like you get to go on the first ship, or what is that? How does that work?
So the way that we reward our members is with voting power, and also with regular. Well, we use stable coins. So this is a currency that's on the blockchain that tracks in our case, the U.S. dollar exactly. So you can exchange them for real dollars, and they're backed by real dollars. We use a currency called DAI, which is created by another DAO called MakerDAO. Um, and yeah, so you can receive just regular dollars and voting power, and it's a blend of both. And yeah, it's like it. It's tricky being a DAO. You mentioned the politics of like how much is each person's contribution worth, and this is something that we've iterated on a bunch because yeah, it's a tricky problem. Usually in a company, you show up and then people determine, hey, your labor is usually worth around this much. In other companies, here's your salary, and that's that. Maybe you get a bonus at the end of the year, kind of. But it's a relationship that's mediated from the top down. So you have a set of people that assess you, and they go, okay, you're worth about this much, and then you enter into a contract there. But what we're trying to do is to make the value assessment decentralized. So basically, every quarter we use an OKR system. Each project has their objectives, and then at the end of the quarter, we review all of the projects that ended that quarter. And then the community actually votes on which projects they think had the largest impact towards furthering the mission, towards improving the DAO, and then within each of the projects, the members they all rate each other and they go, okay, this person did great. This person, didn't show up as much as others, so maybe they get a little bit less. Um, but yeah, we've been designing the system and iterating on it over time.
Very, very interesting. So it's I don't want to call it merit based because that it's got a lot of baggage right now. But it is essentially that it's well, it's merit, but it's also labor based. All of this going into distributing these. What do you call the units that people get? That
The token is called Mooney, like money, but Mooney.
Mooney, right? Okay, you
Yeah,
said that. Yeah, Mooney.
yeah.
Okay, Mooney. So you get some Moonies. Okay, you get some Moonies in your account, and you're building them up. Now, here's the disclaimer I want to make for everybody because it's easy to fall into this if you're not a crypto person. This is not speculative crypto. This is not, hey, I'm going to buy some Bitcoin or I'm going to buy some Doge and Musk is going to say something and Doge is going to shoot up. And at 3 a.m. in the morning, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to trade out of it and make a bunch of profit. I know if that sounds very realistic, it's because I probably did that once. But anyway, it's not that kind of thing. It's really, you're saying stable coins. Stable coins are meant to be, they're tied to a currency like a stable currency, like the dollar. They're just exchange units that are basically electronic. They're digital exchange units so that you can keep those credits in your account, your bank account, or whatever you want to call it, your Mooney account. And they're there digitally. They're verified using the blockchain for all of that, and we can go into that, ledgers and things like that. But these are not speculative. You're not betting on these. It's not like if Moondao gets closer to its goal, these are going to be worth more. Correct? They're just straight out. This is your pay. This is what you keep. And there's an equivalence in the amount you have in your account to the weight of your vote. Is that correct?
Yes. So the way, well, so there's a little bit more to it.
Okay. Help
So
me out.
when you have the governance token itself, and it's worth noting that these sit in your wallet. So it's not like we give you an account with us, and then we can manipulate or move it. The whole point is that this is your data, and no one can modify or change how much you have, etc. And in fact, we have a a fixed amount of these governance tokens, and we've renounced the contract. And you can look on chain to see that we can never create more of these tokens. So it's not we're never like creating more of these out of thin air.
Hmm.
And in order to vote, you have to commit the tokens for some amount of time, and you can't trade them. So they're locked for a fixed amount of time. The longer that you lock them, the more voting power you get. Um, and
Okay.
yeah, so there is a bit of a mechanism where if there is more demand for the governance tokens, if more members want to become part of the organization, then there is a fixed amount of the tokens. But that, I mean, that isn't like the use of the tokens is to vote. It's to have a participation and a feedback in the direction and operation of the organization. So yeah, but I it was an early on decision whether or not Moondao would have a fixed amount of the token, or whether we would have uh, basically an open amount of the supply that we can generate over time, and we elected to go for the fixed amount. So yeah.
Okay. So, forgive me. I'm going to poke around here a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, the so let's say there's 100 tokens
Hmm.
overall forever. That's it. You've issued 100 tokens, and I come in and I'm in the early days of Moondao, right? And I've worked with, and I do enough work to kind of kick things off, and I come up with your cool logo or whatever it is, and I do all that stuff, and then I drop out, and I've been paid one moon Mooney, and I've got it in my account. But then I drop out, right? I'm checked out now. So, and there's a couple of rapid fire questions here, but does that mean my Moondao sits there and it's worth one Moondao, right? It's not, I mean, one Mooney. It's not over time going to become more and more valuable sitting there, correct? It's just one Mooney within the Moondao structure, whether it's now or 10 years from now, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
So the scarcity begins to become maybe a challenge, doesn't it? I mean, at some point, you're getting down to, okay, we've got the last 500 or the last 50 Moondows or the last five Moonies left. Um, it, it, it's a very interesting model because you're limited in the number you can issue,
Hmm.
but you have an unknown amount of time and expense between now and when you're ready to deploy that community on the moon. So there's no plasticity there. There's no expanding availability of funds. Can you help me with that? Help me explain or understand? So somebody early on, I got my one Moondao. I'm hanging out here. Um, that doesn't help me overall. I can swing back in later. Can I sell it back to you? Can you give me a feel for how that all works long term?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I mean, in the very long term, I mean, it's hard to really say how the sort of like Mooney economy looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So the token does trade on exchanges. So you could sell it to someone else that wants to participate in the future. Um, but yeah, I mean
Oh, hang on.
it's really
I want to
worth.
catch you on that. I
Yeah.
just want to,
Hmm. Yeah.
again, so now you're saying that I can trade, I can sell my Mooney,
Hmm.
but okay. So what I'm guessing here is that, and straighten me out again,
Hmm.
within Moondao, it's locked. One Moondao is one Moondao.
Hmm.
But if I go out onto an exchange and I sell my Moondao, it stays at $1 equivalency or whatever. I mean, can I say, hey, I got this Moondao. You guys are getting close now. Like you're getting ready to launch, right? Now I've got my Moondao, my moon, sorry, my Mooney.
Hmm.
Can I go out on the market and sell it and get 100 Moonies or $100 for it, or you know, can you help me there?
Um, well, it depends on what. So the thing is with these crypto tokens is that anyone can set up what's called a liquidity pool where people can exchange the token for other tokens, or and there's a free market there that
Okay,
that people they can do what they like with it. Uh, but it's really important to note. So I think that this gets into like a very like a very tricky piece because there is sort of the security side of crypto. So if you look at what the SEC defines as security, they use something called the Howey test.
mm-hmm.
And one of the prongs of the Howey test is basically an investment in a common enterprise where there's a group of people that are working towards increasing the value of the thing that you have. And so it's an open debate right now whether or not these DAOs are securities or not. Some claim that they are. If you ask Gary Gensler today, he might say yes, they are. They meet all four prongs, but then there are other people that say that they don't. So in our case with MoonDAO, the token itself only serves governance. So it's not a distribution of future profits of the organization. It's not we're not making any sort of promises that hey this thing is going to increase in value. The token itself serves towards governing the community, and there's
Okay,
strong arguments for okay, well, there are actually parallels of this in the real world. So, for example, the Green Bay Packers, they have a system of governance where individual families, they have governance shares over the team, and it's not considered a security because there's no distribution of profits that occurs. And those the families, they can trade governance interests. They can, if someone dies, it can go to someone else. There's some rules on how that works. But yeah, I mean, I'm not a lawyer.
No, well,
we have,
so
yeah. Hmm.
let me help you there. I think so. I'm that guy, that person,
Hmm.
and I've got the one Mooney. I dropped out early. It's getting close to launch, and perhaps in some other form of crypto coin or you know yeah, funds or whatever you want to call them. Trying to be careful with my words here, but um, I could go out and start a bidding war for my one Mooney, right? Because there are only 100 ever issued, right? And this organization is now going to the moon. People could pay me like $1 million for that one Mooney, but all they're getting is one vote in Moondao. That's it, right? They come back into Moondao and they're like, "Hey, man, I paid $1 million. I got this Mooney. Oh, all I get is the same one vote that the person who earned it originally has." Right. So it's governance internal. It's
Hmm.
not, it doesn't increase your ownership. So there may be an external exchange because the value of that vote relative to the importance of whatever it is as judged by society in terms of these people are going to the moon and that one vote now tells, may have some weight to it. But there's no financial increase of value here. Correct? It's just a vote. That's it.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I think that's an interesting point. Is that, as the organization becomes more influential, that vote might be more important um, in the future. So there's some element of that for sure.
But
But
there's no financial reward there. It's really just a vote. So that's how, in a way, you're kind of staying out of, the parts of the Howey test and all of that, what we were talking about. Um, cool. Very, very cool. So we were starting to go into the weeds, and I'm sorry to push you into that, but
no,
um,
it's important stuff. And I think it's really an open question how the U.S. government is going to look at this. And I think going back to, okay, you're the congressperson, right? Looking at these sorts of organizations and trying to figure out, um, are they legitimate? Does this make sense? What's going on here? I think that at the end of the day, it's an interesting sort of game that people are playing where they can participate and align on sort of the high level direction of a fund. Um, uh,
mhm.
so, I think that this technology is going to evolve, and it's going to evolve with or without the U.S. government's influence. And I think that it probably makes more sense for um, the U.S. government, being a very legitimate actor, to try to figure out how they can navigate and regulate these sorts of things in a way that makes sense and that protects the everyday person. And I think that um, there are ways to create DAOs that are exploiting people, and then there are ways that do actually uh, empower people. And
Mhm.
so I think that the earlier that an entity like the United States uh, starts to get into that conversation about DAOs, the better off we'll be in the long term. There are already countries outside of the U.S. that are kind of taking the bull by the horns and trying to figure out how to um, work with these communities and entering into sort of a conversation around how this is going to play out in the long term. And I hope that countries like the United States can be part of that conversation, because yeah, I mean, I think at Moondao at least we're like I'm trying my hardest, and a lot of the other people inside of the community are really trying to use these tools for a good purpose and trying to navigate some of the uncertainty around this. And we're not all knowing, we're not totally wise. We're human. We're all sinners too. We make mistakes. Um, but at the end of the day, this is an incredibly powerful technology with the capability of really, I think, potentially surpassing the sort of pole position of capital markets of any one nation. And so I think it it really is important that that people get ahead of this in one way or another and try to understand it and try to enter into conversation with some of these DAOs before um, things get a little too chaotic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and because I got way carried away, having a good time exploring this and you've done a great job explaining it. Yeah, this is the good side. This is the light side of things. This is the positive side. It is clear to me that nobody on Moondao is in there playing some sort of game, trying to break it in and run away, kind of thing. It is very, very much about democratizing space, and that is exactly what we're all about. So, okay, spacers, we're going to be back in a couple of minutes here. You are listening to iRock Space Radio. My name is Rocket Rick, or Rick Tumlinson, and we are part of the iHeart Network, Space Revolution. We'll be right back. All right, spacers, welcome back. If we did not run you off with the depth of that crypto conversation. Anyway, I'm Rick Tumlinson here, Space Revolution. Our guest is Pablo from Moondao. And all right, Pablo, so we got into the depths of that. That's structural, right? That's just structure. Let's talk about why you want to go to the moon, why you want to establish a human community, why this is such a powerful motivator for you that you basically left the obviously high speed autonomous vehicle you were on in the tech world and decided to take this on. So why the moon, and what is it you want to do there with Moondao? What does Moondao say it's going to do on the moon?
Yeah. Um, I think, well, um, there's right now at the very highest levels of sort of our society, there's a conversation really about the sort of limits on growth of where we're going, and given the resources available, what is going to happen to the future of humans. And um, these are very grandiose sort of things. And okay, I'm just a regular person. I can't really tell you one way or another how that is going to play out. But I do think that when we start looking at the pie as sort of this fixed thing of, okay, this is the Earth, this is how much there is, then we start to get into conflict with one another. And we start to think of things in terms of, if they have something, then that's something that I don't have. And that this leads to just I think a race to the bottom. So we need to look at how do we actually increase the sort of abundance and um, access to resources. And I think that the best place to look for that is in space. And today, right, it's extremely expensive to get into space. It's a very difficult thing to achieve, but the cost of space is going down dramatically. So not just because the cost of getting a kilo up into space is going down with the Starship era of these like super large launch vehicles, but also because of the miniaturization of payloads and the capability of these very tiny payloads to do some very very big things. So satellites are getting much smaller. You're able to do more with less. So this sort of massive cost reduction, I think, is going to be the basis of a very large economy. But we need to there needs to be some amount of push or I guess, well, there's already a natural pull. People all over the world, they see they're inspired by space, but right now there's a difficulty in terms of alignment of getting players from all over the world to share space technology and to start entering into the conversation and to start um, getting so I think that in general, we're looking at maybe a parallel would be sort of the computing revolution, where we started with very large mainframes that over time the cost of computing became cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. You have Moore's law driving that, and then you have the PC revolution. I think we're going to see a similar revolution when it comes to space, where it started out as being this extremely expensive thing that was just the domain of nations, and then over time it's going to move into a more personal relationship that you have with access to space. And yeah, I think that we're on the cusp of this, and something like a DAO solves for a very deep problem here, which is how do you get this sort of dual use technology, this siloed military technology, and open it into the public conversation and public consciousness, and get people from all corners of the world to start collaborating and building towards this this future settlement. So, and I think it's worth also noting why the moon in particular. So you have organizations that are looking at Mars, and I think that Mars, that is definitely a long term amazing goal. But even the people that want to go to Mars, uh, the moon serves as a testing bed for a lot of these ideas. You can start looking at in situ resource utilization. You can start to look at um, uh, like what are the impacts of living in space long term on the human body? These life support systems. What does that really look like? The moon is just a few days away versus Mars being months away. Um, and so I think it's going to be this testing bed for this first leap into space, and and from there, once you get outside of Earth's gravity well, it's a lot cheaper to go to any other place in the solar system. It's just a function of propellant and time, and you can actually generate some propellant there through the resources that are on the moon, from what we already know. And so I think it's going to be this launch point for civilization to venture into the unknown. So a lot of ideas there, but yeah.
Well, no, all of them near and dear to my heart, as you know. Um, in your own personal vision of this, though, going out there, in your vision of it, where do you see Moondao? Let's say Starship happens. Let's say Rocket Lab's vehicle, I'm blanking on the name, happens. Both big reusable vehicles, and the rest of them start to happen, and you have the access to go. Um, so at that point, hopefully, Moondao will have built a financial war chest through whatever means it is you're doing, right? Which is not the Moonies themselves, but things you will be doing. Um, and you go in and you're funding this thing. What is your first human? The robotic stuff is cool, love it. You know, kind of easy to understand, robots prospecting, this and that and the other. But the first human stuff, what do you see as your first human activities on the moon for Moondao?
Hmm. Yeah, well, I think that the first people that go are really going to be laying a foundation for the rest of the people to
Mm-hmm.
go. So you can look at the pilgrims and what were some of the first activities that they were doing. Well, they're trying to find some sort of commercialization, some sort of financial means that they can justify um, those early settlements, and then at the same time building a community, um, having children. I think that eventually we'll see the first child born on the moon, and that's going to be, I think, extremely interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think laying the foundation is going to be there's going to be two things. There's going to be the side of sort of the financial relationship between the Earth and the Moon and some of those early use cases. Um, it's hard for me to say exactly what those might be. Some people have ideas around using the moon as a refueling base, where some of these other missions that are going further out, maybe they go to the moon and they pay for fuel that's generated there on the moon, and there's just a base for other vehicles. Maybe that's what it's going to be. I can't really say. I think that there's going to
Mm-hmm.
be tons of experiments in sort of figuring out what is the business model for those early settlements. But then alongside that is going to be the settlers, the people that want to really like live on the moon long term,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be an extremely harsh environment. But I think they're going to set a foundation for living on Mars and living on some of these other planets, which, yeah, I think it's going. And the people doing it, I think, are going to be people that are making it their life's mission to move the human race forward and to have life become multiplanetary. So there's probably going to be some element of this where it's going to be deeply spiritual. Like these people are going with the possibility of death, of not really knowing if this is this going to pay off. Is their sacrifice going to be worth it necessarily? So I think that like the psychology of those early settlers is going to be very interesting. And I think that we will owe them a debt of gratitude, as we figure out how to live in space, and then eventually I think we will have these settlements on Mars and other planets, and we'll start exploring Europa and the moons of Jupiter, Saturn, and this is extremely exciting. But someone's going to have to figure out how to live on the moon, and so
Mm-hmm. So they'll
yeah.
be there because they want to be.
Hmm.
And now you and I are looking at each other in video, and it is purely accident that I wore my Deep Space Industries asteroid mining T-shirt. But it is important to know that free space is included with planetary surfaces. In history, we've had, if you look at this new world that you and I are on, North America, South America, there were basically three models. And I'm way oversimplifying for why we came. One was um, to make money. That would be, let's say, the Virginia colonies. They were in there trying to figure out how to make some money, and then they landed on tobacco. Boom, they got a profit going. Then there was to take money, which is some of the Spanish experiment, Portuguese experiment to some degree, which is um, by accident, I guess they came across all this gold and stuff, and they were taking it. there was an underlying religious conversion thing that was going on. The two of them played off of each other. Then there were the pilgrims, and they were coming over basically to be free to do what they want to do, you know. And by the way, none of these people were what I would call cuddly. Uh, none of these people in our modern world we would look at and say, "Oh, they were completely benevolent," and no, they were just so spiritual, and everybody paused at 3 o'clock for hugging yoga or something. It's not like that. Um, but those are the three models we have going on, and I kind of put Moondao in more of the pilgrim aspect, in the sense of that the people I think that are going into Moondao are not a part of it because they believe they're going to become billionaires. They're going because they believe. Full stop. Right. And then how do you pay for it comes later. One of our challenges and kind of the journey I've been through, and yes, I've done the venture capital thing and I've done startups and I've tried to answer the left brain spreadsheet Excel type answers of how to close the business plan, etc. And the journey I've come through is to realize that going to just go is perfect. That's fine. Going because you believe in life, the expansion of life, etc. So that's one of the things that excites me about Moondao is you guys, yeah, you want to make, people may want to make a profit, but the profit, the legacy that you are leaving behind is that you have done it, that you have pioneered this place, and that your future generations, be they back on the earth where the pressure has been taken off because you're doing things in space that you might have done on earth, or harvesting resources or increasing wealth or opportunity, is occurring. But at the same time, you're creating a new pathway for future generations of your offspring. So there are going to be children at some point in the future who are going to identify as, we are the offspring, we are the descendants of the Moondao, and they're going to be looking outward and going out and doing their next thing. So it's fantastic. So we're going to be back in a couple of minutes. You are listening to iRock Space Radio. My name is Rick Tomlinson. You can follow me on Twitter at Rocket Rick, at Rocket Rick. I'm sorry, X, whatever. Follow me there. Twitter X, X Twitter, Twitter, whatever the heck it's going to be called. Tomorrow it may change depending on how Elon wakes up, But follow me there. And we are part of iHeartRadio Network, and we are iRock Space Radio. We'll be right back with Pablo for the last segment. All right, Spacers, last segment. We are talking to Pablo from Moondao, and it's been fascinating. An amazing organization that has come together that is working to establish the first human community on Luna, on the moon. And we've been talking about the Tao aspects and really getting into deep stuff there. But now, Pablo, I want to toss one at you. Why? Why are you doing this, man? Why? You were making money at Google. You were doing YouTube. You could be sitting on it, man. You could be like hanging out in Silicon Valley, looking bad, and all that. But you're doing this now. Why?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I've tried to introspect on sort of why I'm trying to take this role on, and it's not like I woke up one day and was like, hey, I'm going to settle the moon, and the idea really kind of found me over time, and yeah, it's not it. I'm kind of just along for the ride to some extent with with Moondao. But like, I guess maybe to introspect a little bit on my psychology, um, I think like every individual, you go through these sort of existential crises to some degree about
Mhm.
why why am I here? Why do I exist? Um,
Mhm.
why am I inside of a primate that I control with my thoughts? Um, and uh, I think you look at sort of the scale of civilization and sort of the history of it, and you start to think in terms of, okay, what is my purpose in terms, like, what do I want to create? What do I want to leave behind? And these are just incredibly big questions that I don't think anyone has the answers to. But um, yeah, I mean, I think that to some degree, I was heavily inspired by Elon, and I think that I really like the way that he talks about, that you really want something that gets you out of bed in the morning, that excites you, that it's something to look forward to. And I think that there's no mission that is more exciting than becoming multiplanetary. And I think that it's just one of those things that, like, we are so blessed to live in this period in human history where we're just about to take this big first step, and it is like I think that we're we're on the cusp of something so exhilarating, so exciting. I think we're living through not the Renaissance. I think we're living through something even more impactful, even bigger. And I'm happy. Genuinely happy to be alive in this moment in time. Not just with space, but also the internet. And the way that the internet has changed us and changed our ability to communicate with one another. And like, I think that we're just on the cusp of multiple revolutions that are incredibly exciting. And you mentioned Google and how I was in these sort of in the sort of big tech world, and I think that the people working at Google are incredible individuals. I worked with some of the smartest people that I've ever worked with at those sort of companies, but I do think to some degree we've sort of seen the power of those organizations, and especially when when you start to see the ring of power and how it has a mind of its own, and it's
Mhm.
sort of this corrupting force. And I'm not trying to say that Google or any of these other companies are corrupt. I'm not trying to just put this like blanket thing on it, but I think that we've seen, especially recently through things like the Twitter files and other. I mean, through our kind of lived experience, that there is sort of this influence where when there is a large node of power, that it attracts all kinds of people that want to use that power for their own purposes. And I do see DAOs as being a potential piece of the puzzle in sort of alleviating some of those issues. So I do think that the organizations that create an economic connection with other worlds, they're going to be the Dutch East Indies on steroids, and incredibly powerful organizations, incredibly, incredibly big attractors of power. And when we start thinking on those terms, these sort of like global terms, I think it starts to scare people a little bit. And we
Mhm.
go, okay, um, if we extrapolate out from what we've seen in these kind of local nodes of power, what does this look like on a global scale? And so, yeah, I think that for those that see those kind of narratives playing out.
Right.
You want to try to see what are the potential solutions to that sort of thing. And I'm not saying that I've got the solution, but I think that there is something there in terms of how a DAO will play a role in giving access to this power to as many people as possible so that things can find a balance and feedback with the everyday person. Just like we in the United States were running this incredible experiment in self government and crowdsourcing of intelligence and governance. And this was a big leap away from the sort of monarchy, dynasties of individuals towards something that has this closer feedback of a republic. Now we're starting to see the inklings of what this looks like through the digital transformation of the internet. And
Mhm.
so, I mean, these are really big ideas, and I am kind of at a loss of trying to articulate and reason through all of these, but I'm trying my best, and it's the most fun and exciting and exhilarating thing that I've done in my life. Having to play with these ideas, like,
Mhm.
and the consequences of them. And I started out as a very innocent individual in this space, going like, wow, hey, uh, wouldn't it be great if we just let everyday people have a direct say in sort of these organizations? And then you start to see the reasons why some of these institutions are gate kept. And because the problems are so difficult, security is such a difficult thing. There are a lot of bad actors. There are people that are trying to um, manipulate and coerce and deceive and destroy things. And so, I've evolved as an individual, I think, through this process of playing with these ideas at a rate that I couldn't have imagined. And so I think that is probably the reason why I'm still here, is because I'm still evolving as a person and learning and growing a lot. And all of the individuals that have been on this journey uh, through Moondao with me, we're evolving as a group collectively, and that is also one of the most satisfying and interesting pieces of this, is that we're starting to learn how to use these tools in the right way, and we're finding the right people, and we're finding all of the people that really truly want to make this happen. And I think that we're just collecting all of the most beautiful stones of knowledge and just of learnings and just the most interesting people. We find misfits that and give them a home, and I think that we're starting to really cultivate something special. And so I think that's why I'm still here.
I think
um,
it's look.
yeah.
I think it's a beautiful vision, and I think what you're trying to do is fantastic. Look, I mean, I do not want to live into a future where Elon Musk has the universe and the Facebook guys got the multiverse, and then they challenge each other to cage matches, projected into our brains to decide who's the coolest for some stupid whatever reason. I think that what you're looking at is a democratization and inclusion approach. People can get involved. A kid sitting in front of a computer in Bangladesh or anywhere else on the planet can be a part of Moondao, correct? Right? And so that's exciting. That's really really exciting. Speaking of exciting, I have to ask you a couple of our questions. We burned out so much time here. We're way over, but I do want to hear because I am curious about your taste in music. The idea I talked to you about before of flying over the moon.
Hmm.
You're going several thousand clicks an hour. You get that sense of motion. You're going over it. Coming over the poles, south or north. I don't care which one. And what would you be jamming to? What would you be listening to?
Um, well, my favorite artist of all time is this group out of Australia called the Avalanches, and
Hmm.
they have a really interesting method of creating their songs where they just grab bits and pieces, little samples from thousands of other songs. Their original album, Since I Left You, is just a patchwork of all of these different sounds from different parts of the world, different eras of music that all kind of generate this new sound. And I love the what they how they've been able to just take all these different voices and meld them into this new thing. And yeah, I think that their music is beautiful. Their original album, Since I Left You, is great. I recommend people give it a listen. The song itself, the album is named after Since I Left You. The song, I think, would be what I'd be listening to. Um, I'd also recommend their most recent album, which is kind of it's space themed. Um, and they have samples from the original Voyager records,
Oh, very cool.
um, and they talk about sort of like the life beyond, and sort of, yeah, it's just they've got something going on there.
Great. So
The
rapid
yeah.
fire now,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yep.
we're gonna zoom in here. Favorite science fiction book?
I'm reading Dune right now. I hate to admit that I've never read it, but I'm reading it right now, and it's hard to say that hey, this is my favorite as I'm reading it, but as I'm reading it, I'm just like I
Yeah,
it's something really special.
a lot of great world creation going on there, right?
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
um, favorite nonfiction book? Space or not?
Um,
Don't care.
uh, Plato's Republic, which is maybe a boring one to some people, but it's um, yeah, I read it for the first time in college in a philosophy class, and then I've gone back to it
Perfect. I
every
love it.
2 years or so. Yeah.
And
Hmm.
then favorite movie?
Um, it's this is my dad's favorite movie, and it became mine too. Is the Graduate? Um, it's an old movie. Simon and Garfunkel did the soundtrack. Yeah.
Love the movie. Only problem I have with it is that the guy tells the young guy to get into plastics.
Uh-huh.
Plastic was a new thing back then.
Mhm.
Fantastic. Favorite science fiction movie or TV, either way.
Hmm. Um, I mean, maybe a boring answer, but Star Wars, I think, just has something
No, we
really
get,
deep
yep,
in the psychology. You know, it feels
we
like,
get both Star Wars and Star Trek, so it's cool.
yeah.
And then lastly, just in a short way of saying it, what do you tell a young person, a person of any age, that's sitting out there right now listening, who wants to get involved in opening the frontier? What would you suggest they do right now?
Um, learn math, physics, engineering, um, and engage the culture of it. You know, really start getting into the conversation and reaching out.
Mhm.
And yeah. Hmm.
Great. I'm going to help you out too. Join Moondao. Go
Yeah,
join
that too.
Moondao right
Yeah.
now. Become a Taoist. Look, Pablo, ran you through it on the crypto stuff. You handled it well. Totally appreciate it. My inner congressperson feels much more enlightened now. And again, I'm a huge fan. I want to see um, like I said, Mayflowers to moonflowers, and I want to see that happening. Congratulations on pulling this thing together. People can't see it, but I have the thing you gave me the very first time I met, which is this beautiful metal ticket to space. 9,060 units, Moondao NFTs. I'm a happy camper right there. Um, Hope to see you again soon, my brother. And we are going to go for it. Spacers, thank you for listening. Hope you learned something. My name is Rick Tomlinson at Rocket Rick on Twitter. You are listening to iHeartRadio Network. iRock Space Radio is where you're hearing it. And we are out of the airlock.